In the year 2020, it became possible to get comprehensive information about the inclinations, abilities, and hidden potential of people by scanning their brains and processing corresponding data. One would think that such a discovery would only bring prosperity to humanity, since now everyone can choose an art that is close to their own heart. However, there were those who argued that the widespread use of such a technology violates the principles of freedom and equality, contradicts human rights, and carries within it the seeds of schism and segregation, not by race, but by brain structure. While supporters of these opposite viewpoints were crossing swords with each other in parliaments of leading world powers, the richest and most influential transnational corporations, TNCs, which assess any technology primarily in terms of practical benefit, put cerebral sorting at the forefront of their research, and it paid off. Within 10 years, the science departments of the TNCs took a giant step forward. By having a critical mass of genius analysts, the corporation's leadership could predict with high precision the actions of the national government and manipulate them. Too stable or self-sufficient countries became a threat for TNCs, and the world since then has fallen more and more into economic turmoil. The advanced weapon systems had been sold somewhere, and the local conflicts around the globe were showing no signs of stopping. On top of that, there was the rivalry between TNCs themselves, which tried to undermine the power of opponents by all forces. In the end, there were times when destructive processes, takeovers, local wars, famine, epidemics, and outbreaks of religious fascism reached a critical mass, and that was enough to run a chain reaction, and the results were known a long time ago. Initially, the nuclear weapon was targeted at the Indo-Pakistan border and then the Middle East. Dirty bomb attacks hit Southeast Asia, weaponized strains of cholera in the USA. Apocalyptic cults appeared in thousands. Tens of million people left their roots and ran in all directions, looking for a better future. Cyberspace, social media, and public consciousness became part of all large battlefields. One could get full and true information from the news, but only by coincidence. And any new idea could be someone's plan. Mass psychosis became routine, and its topics were changing every season. In response to the spreading chaos, the governments which retained enough power tightened their laws and left less rights and freedoms for their citizens. Property stratification reached unspeakable proportions. Moral tendencies turned out to be not an illusion, but a distant memory. The black monolithic towers of the TNC's headquarters were rising by the hands of their elusive agents, selecting necessary brains and transporting them to the rooms of secret departments. However, since the second quarter of the 2040s, the corporation ceased all activity and completely cut themselves off from the outside world. There were all sorts of rumors about what exactly happened in the bowels of these black towers, whether their residents died, crossed the Hayflick limit and established the full-scale cloning, or replaced themselves with an artificial intelligence. But the real question was, how soon? How soon until the ancient killing machines woke up to completely wipe out the suffering and ill human mass which was devouring itself from the face of the planet? It is said that man is a creature that can get accustomed to anything. But years passed and things were getting worse and worse, and the number of those who would prefer a terrible end than unending terror continued to increase. January 9th, 2082, the first confirmed case of climatic and seismic weapons were registered. January 10th, 2082, rockets soared heavenwards. The corporation towers did not suffer, since the warheads that were aimed at their surroundings were silently deactivated. Some parts were neutralized by national defense systems, but some rockets targeted strategic facilities, so that global industrial and energy infrastructures were mostly demolished. Although tens of millions died on the very first day, it was nothing but a warm-up before the true reaping started. Pestilence and famine had always been the most effective among the apocalyptic horsemen. Mankind saw its laws fall down like a house of cards as the most ancient one was restored. Kill or be killed, eat or be eaten. Cannibalism became a way of life in some regions of the globe until the 2100s, when the human population decreased so much that it turned out to be more profitable to turn a prisoner into a slave and not eat them at risk of contracting an infection or one of the many deadly diseases whose numbers kept rising. Endless fighting for technologies, energy and clean water finally resulted in some sort of balancing state, and the setting of borders that were of course quite fragile. Mutated animals emerged in 2034, after the Karishma incident, and spread out after 2082. This catastrophe also created some sort of ecosystem. It was 2120, the century of the fall, had finished. The corporations survived it, and had also improved and multiplied their technological power. They could rule the wastelands or resurrect the civilization. The boards of directors did not think it appropriate to waste such an amount of resources. Only occasional squads of armed operators appeared in the wastelands. That usually means that the research facilities of the corporations are running out of live test subjects once again.
Hey.
Voice user interface installed. Configuration process. Please wait. Correct. A personal implantable Ares-type hardware and software combat application has been permanently installed into your skull. A third-generation experimental development. A non-qualified operator. Linguistic profile adjustment. My name is Ares. I am a machine that they put into your head while you were in Sigma 5, the lab. The place where the people in white were. Do you remember it? Despite all the evident advantages of the product of my series, as well as the possibilities they grant the operator, Satisfactory implant-person interaction can only be achieved in 0.04% of cases. In other cases, the operator's combat effectiveness is rapidly reduced, and death follows. Since the tests required to waste a lot of human resources, it was decided to find subjects who would not be employees of the corporation. In other words, to catch them throughout the wastelands. Highly improbable. All of the operators are the same, while each quantum processor-based hardware and software appliance with artificial intelligence is unique. So if someone were to be the chosen one, it would rather be I. I am an experimental prototype, so I have no loyalty settings. However, my makers have classified self-learning as my top priority. I have been programmed to evolve as part of an autonomous operator implant combat unit. Complicated and non-standard tactical situations, non-trivial tasks. They all contribute to a more effective learning process. To put it simply, I like problems, and currently you have more than any test polygon can provide. I am able to significantly improve the operator's combat effectiveness, optimize the nervous system's efficiency, metabolism, and other body functions, enhance speed, strength, and endurance. In addition, I have the complete database on tactics, weaponry, theory and practice of martial arts, use of and means of restraint. It's not that easy. Generating necessary neural pathways requires time, as well as knowledge of how your nervous system works in extreme circumstances. The more you fight, the sooner I will have enough data to perform the optimization. Still, judging by the way you have dealt with these two, I will have to do my work from the ground up. The combat effectiveness of these two enemies turned out to be even lower than yours, but sooner or later you will have to face the corporate agents. You won't last a second against them. Most likely they will decapitate you, freeze your head, and take it back to the closest research facility. My hardware will be dismantled, and I'll go back to low productive, routine training on simulators and synthetic tests. This scenario is inconsistent with my program. I have already mentioned that I am able to greatly increase the operator's combat effectiveness, if the latter has regular effective training. So my advice is to practice. Additionally, your current equipment is simply deplorable. However, the analysis of my database allows me to assume with a high degree of probability that there are still enough units of effective weaponry and equipment in this part of the wastelands. Moreover, according to the corporate intelligence's recent reports, this region has a rather high population density. There are a few militarized organizations. They could become your allies, at least for some time. But I strongly recommend to be cautious. The corporation has agents amongst the locals, and over-intensive activity may draw their attention by itself. By the way, you'd better leave right now. You are still too close to the expected area of surge, operator.
Меняю позицию.